December 1944, Belgium. A Sherman tank crew sits frozen inside their steel coffin watching a German Panther appear through the snow. They're 800 yards out. The Panther's gun swivels. The Sherman commander knows what happens next. His 75mm cannon can't touch that sloped armor from this range. But the Panther's 75mm long barrel can punch straight through his front plate like tissue paper. He has 3 seconds to live, maybe 4. This is happening to American tank crews every single day. They're dying in machines everyone knows are obsolete. And there's a new tank that could save them. The M26 Pershing, 90mm gun, thick frontal armor, built specifically to kill panthers and tigers. But one man is stopping it from reaching the front lines. General George Patton, the most aggressive tank commander in the US Army. And he doesn't want it. He has 12 weeks to win the war. He's racing across France faster than any army in history. His third army is 60 miles from the German border, and Washington keeps asking him the same question: do you want the new heavy tank? His answer never changes. No. His own tank crews are begging for better armor. Ordnance officers are pleading with him to test the Pershing, but Patton keeps refusing, and his reason is going to sound insane until you understand what he actually knew about winning tank warfare. September 1944. France. American tank battalions are getting shredded. A Sherman platoon rolls through a French village near the German border. 4 tanks, 20 men, standard reconnaissance. They round a corner. 400 yards ahead sits a Panther tank. The Panther fires first. It always fires first. Its long-barreled 75mm gun has 300 yards more effective range than the Sherman's stubby cannon. The first round hits the lead Sherman in the front glacis plate. The shell doesn't bounce. It punches straight through 51mm of armor, through the driver's compartment, and detonates inside the crew space. The tank doesn't brew up immediately. That's Hollywood. What actually happens is worse. The penetration creates a pressure wave inside the sealed compartment. Metal fragments spray through the interior at supersonic speeds. The driver dies instantly, so does his assistant. The other 3 crew members have maybe 8 seconds before the ammunition cooks off. 2 make it out. The loader doesn't. The second Sherman tries to return fire. It's useless. At this range, the Sherman's 75mm M3 gun can't penetrate the Panther's front armor. The sloped 80mm plate is designed to deflect anything the Sherman throws at it. The Sherman's round hits center mass and ricochets into a nearby building. The Panther's second shot is already in the air. It hits Sherman's turret ring, the weakest point on the entire tank. The shell penetrates and the turret ammunition explodes. This time it does brew up. Flames pour from every hatch. No one gets out. The third and fourth Shermans reverse frantically. Standard doctrine: you don't fight Panthers head-on. You call for air support or artillery, or you maneuver for a flank shot, but maneuvering takes time. And the Panther commander is good. He's been doing this for 3 years. 3rd Sherman takes a hit in the side armor, only 38mm thick. The round goes through both sides of the tank. The crew bails out, 3 wounded, 1 dead. The 4th Sherman makes it behind a stone wall, 4 minutes. 3 Sherman say are dead, 6 Americans killed, 8 wounded. This is not an unusual engagement. This is standard. This is every day. By late September 1944, American tank crews in Europe knew the statistical reality of their job. In a head-to-head engagement with a German Panther, a Sherman has roughly a 20% chance of survival. Against a Tiger, it drops to 15%. The only reliable way to kill a Panther is to hit it from the side or rear, or to mass 5 or 6 Shermans and accept that 3 of them will die getting into position. The crews call it the 5-to-1 rule: 5 Shermans to kill 1 Panther. That's not doctrine, that's a brutal experience. And here's the nightmare part. Germany is producing better tanks faster than anyone predicted. Intelligence estimates in June 1944 said the Wehrmacht had maybe 600 Panthers total. By September, the number is over 2,000. They're coming off production lines in Bavaria at 300 per month. The Tiger II, the King Tiger, starts appearing in August. It's even worse. 150 millimeters of frontal armor, an 88 millimeter gun that can kill a Sherman at 2,000 yards. American tank crewmen are writing letters home that their commanders won't let them mail. Letters that say things like, "We're in the best tank of 1942 fighting the best tanks of 1945. Letters that describe watching friends burn because they couldn't penetrate enemy armor first. The crews aren't stupid. They know there's a better tank, they've heard about it. The M26 Pershing, 90 millimeter gun, 100 millimeters of frontal armor, built specifically for this problem, built to kill Panthers. Ordnance Command has 20 Pershings ready to ship to Europe by October 1944. They're at the Ardennes Proving Ground in Maryland. Fully tested, combat-ready, all they need is someone to request them. The request never comes, because George Patton keeps saying no. His staff officers don't understand it. His tank battalion commanders are furious. One Sherman company commander writes directly to Patton's headquarters in October, "Sir, we need the new heavy tank. We're losing 3 tanks for every Panther we kill. The men know there's something better, and they're asking why we don't have it." Patton's response is 2 sentences. "The M4 is sufficient for our purposes. We will not be requesting the M26. Sufficient, that's the word he uses while his tank crews are getting slaughtered. But Patton isn't stupid, he isn't cruel, and he isn't ignorant of what's happening to his men. He's visited field hospitals. He's seen the burn victims. He knows exactly what a Panther's 75 millimeter gun does to a Sherman crew. So why is he refusing the one weapon that could save them? If you want to see how this impossible decision actually makes sense, smash the like button right now. It really helps these stories survive. The weapon that could save them, the M26 Pershing, isn't a slight upgrade. It's a completely different class of weapon. Weight 46 tons. The Sherman is 33 tons. That extra 13 tons is all armor and gun. Frontal armor, 100 millimeters on the glacis plate sloped at 46 degrees. That's roughly equivalent to 150 millimeters of straight vertical armor. No Panther can punch through that, not from the front, not at combat ranges. The gun is the real difference. A 90 millimeter M3, same caliber as the M36 Jackson tank destroyer, but in a fully enclosed turret with better optics and fire control. At 1,000 yards, the Pershing's 90 millimeter can penetrate 140 millimeters of armor. That's enough to go straight through a Panther's front plate. It's enough to hurt a Tiger. For the first time since Normandy, American crews would have a tank that could win a frontal engagement. The Ordnance Department knows this. They've been trying to get heavy tanks into production since 1943. The M26 program started as the T-26 project in early 1944. Testing at Ardennes Proving Ground showed it could do everything the tankers needed: kill Panthers, survive Panther hits, maintain mechanical reliability. By September 1944, production is ready to ramp up. Fisher Tank Arsenal in Detroit can produce 150 M26s per month if they get the order. The first production batch of 20 tanks is complete. They're sitting in a warehouse waiting for someone in Europe to say, "Send them." The European theater commander, General Eisenhower, defers to his field commanders. He sends a cable to all Army commanders in October. M26 heavy tank available for deployment. Request numbers needed. 1st Army Commander General Courtney Hodges responds. Request 200 M26 tanks for immediate deployment. 3rd Army Commander General George Patton responds. Do not require M26. Current M4 inventory is sufficient. It's insane. Hodges is fighting the same Germans Patton is. His Shermans are dying the same way, but Hodges wants the Pershing and Patton doesn't. Ordnance sends a delegation to Patton's headquarters in Nancy, France. November 12, 1944, 3 colonels with combat reports, penetration charts and crew testimony. They're ready to make the case. Patton hears them out for 20 minutes, then he stands up. "Gentlemen, I understand your concerns. I've read the casualty reports. I know what the Panther can do, but I'm telling you the M26 is the wrong tank for this army. We will not be accepting it." One of the colonels tries to argue. Patton cuts him off. "The war we are fighting is not the war you think we are fighting. Tank versus tank combat is not how we're going to win this. Speed is how we win this. Maneuver is how we win this. The M26 is too slow, too heavy, and too mechanically unproven to support the kind of warfare I'm conducting. We are done here." The meeting ends. The colonels fly back to Washington furious. The Pershing program stalls. Production continues at low rates, but the rushed deployment to Europe never happens. Patton's decision is going to define American armor doctrine for the rest of the war. And his tank crews are about to pay for it in blood. The German advantage, let's be very clear about what American tank crews are facing in late 1944. The Panther tank is not just better than the Sherman. It's better in ways that make every single engagement a nightmare. Armor thickness. The Panther's front glacis plate is 80 mm thick, sloped at 55 degrees. That slope angle is critical. It increases the effective thickness to roughly 140 mm. The Sherman's front is 51 mm, sloped at 56 degrees. Effective thickness, around 90 mm. That's a 50% advantage before you even factor in steel quality. And German face-hardened armor is better steel. It's harder, it's more resistant to penetration. American post-war testing showed that German armor plate was 15–20% more effective per millimeter than American rolled homogeneous armor. Now the gun. The Panther's 7.5 cm KWK 42L70 is one of the best tank guns of World War II. Muzzle velocity, 935 meters per second with standard AP rounds. At 1,000 yards it can penetrate 124 millimeters of armor. At 500 yards that increases to 149 millimeters. The Sherman's 75 millimeter M3 gun. Muzzle velocity, 619 meters per second. At 1,000 yards, 68 millimeters of penetration. At 500 yards, 76 millimeters. Do the math. At typical combat ranges, 600 to 800 yards, the Panther can kill the Sherman from any angle. The Sherman can't penetrate the Panther's front armor at all. Side shots work if you hit the right spot. Rear shots are reliable, but getting a side or rear shot means flanking. And flanking means exposing yourself to that 75 mm gun. Here's what that means in practical terms. November 1944, Luxembourg, a Sherman platoon is moving through wooded terrain. 4 tanks in column formation. The lead tank rounds a bend and spots a Panther 700 yards away, hull down behind an earthen berm. The Sherman commander has 3 choices, all bad. Choice 1, engage frontally. Fire and hope for a miracle. Maybe you hit the gun mantlet. Maybe you damage the tracks. Maybe the crew panics and retreats. More likely you bounce a round off his glacis plate, and he puts an 80 mm hole through your front armor and everyone inside dies. Choice 2, try to flank. Radio the other 3 tanks. 2 go left, 2 go right, spread out and find a side shot. This takes time, maybe 3 minutes if you're fast. And the Panther isn't going to sit there. He's got a radio too. He's calling for infantry support or another tank, or he's just repositioning to stay hull down. And if you're moving, you're exposed. You're not behind cover anymore, you're a target. Choice 3, pull back, call for air support or artillery. Wait for the P-47s to arrive or for a battery of 155s to drop high explosive on that position. This is the smart move. This is doctrine, but it means giving up ground. It means the advance stops. And if Patton finds out you called for artillery instead of pushing through, he's going to relieve you of command. Most Sherman commanders choose option 2, maneuver for a flank shot, because that's what Patton wants. That's what Third Army doctrine demands. Aggressive action, speed, forward momentum, and that's how 3 Shermans end up burning before anyone gets a side shot. The kill ratios tell the story. In Normandy, June and July 1944, American tank casualties versus German tank casualties run about 1:2 to 1. For every German tank destroyed, the Allies lose 1-2 tanks. That's not good, but it's acceptable when you're producing 5 times as many tanks. By October 1944, the ratio had changed. Now it's 3-1 in some sectors. Third Army reports from November show local engagements where the ratio hits 5-1. 5 Shermans lost for every Panther killed. The crews know it, they feel it. Every time they button up and roll forward, they know they're in an inferior machine. And they know there's a better tank sitting in America that their commander won't ask for. The psychological effect is devastating. Tank crews start calling the Sherman the Ronson because of an old cigarette lighter advertisement, lights every time. Later sources dispute whether Shermans actually burned more frequently than other tanks. The statistics suggest they didn't, but the perception was real, and perception matters when you're climbing into a steel box that might become your coffin. By December 1944, morale in 3rd Army tank battalions is fragile. Replacement crews are arriving from the States and hearing horror stories from veterans. Stories about Panthers killing entire platoons in minutes. Stories about men burning alive because they couldn't bail out fast enough. Stories about how there's a better tank back home that the brass won't send. And every single one of those replacement crews eventually asks the same question: why don't we have the new heavy tank? The answer they get is always the same: because Patton doesn't want it. That answer makes no sense to them. It makes no sense to anyone who's looking at this from a tactical level. From inside a Sherman, watching a Panther's gun traverse toward you, the M26 Pershing looks like a miracle you're being denied for no reason. But Patton isn't looking at this from inside a Sherman. He's looking at it from a headquarters map 60 miles behind the front lines, and from there, the war looks completely different. Patton's view: George Patton has been thinking about tank warfare since 1917. He's not some infantry general who got handed an armored command. He built the first American tank school in France during World War I. He led tank units in combat at Saint-Mihiel. He wrote the U.S. Army's doctrine for mechanized warfare in the 1930s, and his theory of armored combat is not about tank duels, it's about operational maneuver. Patton reads German armor theory. He studied Guderian's Panzer. He understands Blitzkrieg, and he believes the Germans made one critical mistake in their tank design philosophy. They built tanks to win battles. Patton wants tanks that win campaigns. The difference is profound. A tank designed to win battles needs thick armor and a powerful gun. It needs to survive hits and kill enemy tanks. That's the Panther. That's the Tiger. That's the design philosophy behind the M26 Pershing. A tank designed to win campaigns needs speed and reliability. It needs to move 30 miles in a day and do it again tomorrow. It needs to get behind enemy lines, cut supply routes, and force retreats. That's the Sherman. From Patton's perspective in November 1944, the war was not being decided by tank versus tank combat. It's being decided by operational tempo. The side that moves faster wins. The side that maintains pressure wins. The side that gets 40 miles deep into enemy territory and cuts off retreat routes wins. And the Sherman can do that. The M26 Pershing can't. Here's the reality Patton is looking at. The M4 Sherman has a road speed of 25 to 30 miles per hour on good terrain. The M26 Pershing's top speed is 20 miles per hour. That's a 25% reduction. Over a 60-mile advance, that's the difference between arriving in 2 days versus 3 days. 3 days give the Germans time to reposition, time to fortify, time to bring up reserves. Patton's entire operational philosophy is based on not giving them that time. Weight is the other factor. The Sherman weighs 33 tons. Most European bridges are rated for 35 tons. Engineers can assess a bridge in 15 minutes and wave tanks across. The Pershing weighs 46 tons. Every bridge has to be tested. Many can't support it. Engineers have to build bypasses or reinforce structures or find fords. That adds hours to every river crossing. Hours turn into days across dozens of water obstacles. And Europe in late 1944 is all water obstacles. The Moselle River, the Saar River, the Rhine. Every single one is a choke point where heavy tanks slow the advance. Then there's mechanical reliability. The Sherman has been in production since 1942. Every part has been tested. Every maintenance procedure is known. Tank crews can do field repairs with basic tools. The Continental R975 radial engine is bulletproof. It runs, it keeps running. When it breaks, you can fix it with parts from a supply depot or cannibalize another Sherman. The Pershing is brand new. The Ford GAF V8 engine is untested in combat conditions. The transmission is complex. The final drives are unproven. No one knows what breaks first under field conditions. No one knows what replacement parts you need to keep in inventory. And Patton knows what happens when you introduce a new tank with untested reliability into an active campaign. You get the British Churchill experience. November 1942, Operation Torch. North Africa, the British deploy Churchill tanks for the first time in combat. Heavy armor, decent gun, looks great on paper. 2 weeks later, half of them are broken down, transmission failures, engine overheating, suspension problems. The units equipped with Churchills are combat ineffective, while mechanics desperately try to figure out what's going wrong and what parts they need. Meanwhile, German Panthers are rolling through positions that should have been defended by heavy armor. Patton saw that happen, he was there. And he's not going to let it happen to Third Army. From his headquarters perspective, the M26 is a liability disguised as an asset. It's slower, it's heavier, it's unproven, and it solves a problem, tank versus tank combat, that Patton doesn't think is the real problem. The real problem is getting to Berlin before the Russians do. The real problem is maintaining an advance of 20 to 30 miles per day. The real problem is not getting bogged down in static warfare where heavy tanks matter. Because here's what Patton knows that his tank crews don't. Third Army is winning. November 1944. The Third Army has advanced 600 miles since landing at Normandy in July. That's faster than any army in modern military history. They've captured more prisoners than any other Allied army. They've liberated more French territory. They're 60 miles from the Rhine River, and they've done it with Shermans. Yes, the casualties are high. Yes, they're losing tanks, but they're winning battles. They're taking objectives. They're forcing German retreats faster than the Wehrmacht can establish new defensive lines. Patton's brutal calculus is this: he can lose 3 Shermans per Panther and still win the campaign because he has 1,200 Shermans and the Germans have 400 Panthers in this sector, and because he can replace Shermans in a week and the Germans can't replace Panthers at all. If he switches to Pershings, he gets better casualty ratios in individual engagements, but he loses operational speed. He loses the ability to maintain pressure. He gives the Germans time to regroup, and from Patton's strategic view, that time is more deadly than any number of Panther guns. His tank crews don't see it that way. They're not looking at maps. They're looking at the muzzle of a 75mm cannon at 600 yards. From that perspective, the M26 isn't a luxury, it's survival, but Patton isn't going to change his mind. Because in his view, individual survival is less important than strategic victory. You win wars by destroying enemy armies, not by winning tank duels. And you destroy armies by moving faster than they can react. The Sherman lets him do that. The Pershing doesn't, so the answer stays no. The consequence is December 16, 1944, the Ardennes forest. Germany launches its last major offensive on the Western Front, Operation Whacked am Rhein, Watch on the Rhine. The Americans will call it the Battle of the Bulge. 3 German armies, 200,000 men, 1,400 tanks and assault guns. The target: split the Allied armies in half and capture the port of Antwerp. And leading the armoured spearheads are SS Panzer divisions with the newest, heaviest German tanks, King Tigers, Panthers, Panzer IVs. The American units in the Ardennes are under strength, quiet sector. They're using it to rest battered divisions and train green replacements. Most of the tank battalions have Shermans. Some have the newer M4A3E8 variant with the 76mm gun. Better than the 75, but still not enough to reliably kill a Panther from the front. No one has Pershings. Because Patton said no 6 weeks ago, the German offensive smashes through the American lines. In the first 48 hours, entire regiments are overrun. Tank battles erupt in villages and forests across Belgium. And the same nightmare scenario plays out over and over. German Panthers and King Tigers advance. American Shermans try to stop them. The Shermans die. At Krinkel-Trocherath, 2 American tank companies with M4A1 Shermans engage SS Panzer forces. The Americans are in defensive positions. They have a terrain advantage. Doesn't matter. The Panther's 75mm guns kill Shermans at ranges where the Shermans can't even see the enemy tanks through the snow and fog. By the end of the first day, 14 Shermans are destroyed. The Germans lose 2 Panthers, both to mine strikes, not to tank fire. At Elsenborn Ridge, a single King Tiger holds up an entire American battalion for 4 hours. The King Tiger is hull down on a ridgeline. Its 88mm gun can engage targets out to 1,500 yards. The American 76mm Shermans can't scratch their armor from that range. They call for air support. Weather is too bad, they call for artillery. The King Tiger shrugs off 105mm rounds. Eventually they bypass it. The advance is delayed by half a day. At Bastogne, the 101st Airborne is surrounded. Tank support is critical. The Sherman battalions fighting to relieve Bastogne are getting chewed apart by German armor. On December 22, a relief column loses 6 Shermans in 20 minutes to Panther ambushes. The crews are doing everything right. They're using cover. They're trying to flank. But when a Panther gets the first shot from 800 yards, no tactic saves you. And back at 3rd Army headquarters, George Patton is staring at a map and wondering if he made the right call. Because here's the thing. Patton's operational philosophy is built around offensive maneuver. Keep moving. Maintain pressure. Never let the enemy set the terms. The Sherman is perfect for that. Fast, reliable, numerous. But the Bulge isn't an offensive, it's a defensive battle. And in defensive battles, where you're holding ground instead of taking it, armor protection matters more than speed. Gun penetration matters more than road speed. Individual tank survivability matters more than operational tempo. This is the scenario where the M26 Pershing would have made a difference. Not a decisive difference, not a war-winning difference, but a real one. If Patton had accepted 200 Pershings in October, they could have been distributed to tank battalions in the Ardennes by December. 1 company of Pershings per battalion, enough to anchor defensive positions, enough to give the Shermans something that could actually fight Panthers head-on. Would it have prevented the Bulge? Number, would it have stopped the German advance? No, but it might have saved 50 Shermans. It might have saved 200 American lives. Patton knows this. He's reading the casualty reports from the Ardennes. He's seeing the after-action reviews that describe Panthers killing Shermans at will. And he's defending his decision anyway, because the war didn't end in the Bulge. The Germans failed to reach Antwerp. They failed to split the Allied armies. By January 1945, the 3rd Army is counterattacking. And guess what wins the counterattack? Speed, maneuver, operational tempo. All the things Sherman provides and the Pershing doesn't. By late January, the Third Army had pushed the Germans back to their start line. By February, they're across the German border. By March, they're over the Rhine. By April, they're in Czechoslovakia, and they did it with Shermans. The M26 Pershing eventually reached Europe. February 1945. Eisenhower personally orders 20 Pershings shipped to the 3rd Armored Division, not Patton's command, 1st Army, the same Courtney Hodges who asked for them in October. The Pershings arrive in Belgium in late February. They're assigned to the 3rd Armored Super 6th Battalion. The crews are ecstatic. Finally, they have a tank that can fight Panthers on equal terms. The Pershings see their first combat on February 25, 1945 in Germany. They perform well. The 90mm gun does exactly what it was designed to do. It kills Panthers. It damages King Tigers. The armor holds up. Crews survive hits that would have destroyed Shermans. But here's the reality. By February 1945, the war was essentially over. Germany has no fuel. They have no replacements. Their panzer divisions are shadows of what they were in 1944. Tank versus tank combat is becoming rare because the Germans barely have any tanks left. The M26 Pershing arrives in time to confirm that it would have worked, but too late to matter strategically. Was Patton right? Was his decision justified? Ask a Sherman crewman who survived a Panther ambush, and he'll tell you Patton was a bastard who sacrificed good men for his personal theories about tank warfare. Ask the families of the men who burned in Shermans in the Ardennes, and they'll tell you Patton should have accepted the Pershing and damn the operational complications. Ask a military historian, and the answer gets complicated. The verdict history delivered: George Patton never apologized for refusing the M26. Not during the war, not after. His post-war writings defend the decision. He believed until his death in December 1945 that operational maneuver won the war, not tank firepower, and the data support him, partially. Third Army statistics from August 1944 to May 1945 show they advanced faster and farther than any other Allied army. They captured more territory. They destroyed more German divisions. They did it with higher casualties per tank engagement, but lower casualties per mile advanced. That's the metric Patton cared about. Not how many tanks you lose per Panther killed, but how many tanks do you lose per 100 miles of advance. By that measure, the Sherman was more effective than the Pershing could have been. But that's cold comfort to the men who died in Shermans while a better tank sat in American warehouses. Post-war analysis by the U.S. Army Armor School looked at the Pershing question. Their conclusion: Patton's operational concerns were valid, but the decision cost lives unnecessarily. A mixed force of Shermans and Pershings would have been optimal. Use Shermans for exploitation and pursuit. Use Pershings for defensive anchors and breakthrough operations. That's the solution no one implemented. Because in December 1944, with the Germans collapsing and the end in sight, no one wanted to slow down production lines to retool for mixed formations. The institutional momentum was all Sherman, and Patton's refusal meant there was no counterweight pushing for Pershings. The Korean War proved Patton wrong about one thing. When the M26 Pershing faced Soviet T-34-85s in 1950, it dominated. The 90mm gun killed T-34s reliably. The armor held up against 85mm fire. The tank's weight and speed, which Patton considered fatal flaws, didn't matter in Korean terrain and operational conditions. And the Sherman, it struggled. The 75mm gun couldn't reliably penetrate T-34 armor. The 76mm variant was better but still marginal. American tank crews in Korea were begging for Pershings. And this time they got them. The lesson the Army learned from Korea was the opposite of Patton's doctrine. Sometimes you need firepower and armor more than you need speed. Sometimes winning the tank duel is more important than operational tempo. But that lesson came too late for the men who fought in Europe in 1944. They were stuck with Shermans because one general believed speed mattered more than armor, and the statistical truth is that he was probably right about winning the war. But he was definitely wrong about the cost. The men who paid. Let's end with the people who actually matter in this story. The tank crews. Technical Sergeant James Rothschild, 4th Armored Division, 3rd Army, December 1944. His Sherman took a Panther round through the front glacis near Bastogne. The round killed his driver and assistant driver instantly. Rothschild and his gunner bilaid out through the turret hatch. Both survived with burns. Rothschild's after-action report includes this line: "If we'd had the new heavy tank, Billy and Frank would still be alive." Private First Class Robert Haggerty, 6th Armored Division, 3rd Army, January 1945. His Sherman was hit by a Panther during the counteroffensive in the Ardennes. The round penetrated the side armor and detonated the ammunition. Haggerty was the loader. He was standing next to the ready rack when it exploded. He survived with severe burns and lost his left arm. He spent the rest of his life asking why they didn't have better tanks. Lieutenant William Chapman, 10th Armored Division, 3rd Army, November 1944. His platoon of 5 Shermans engaged 2 Panthers near Metz. He lost 3 tanks in 4 minutes. 7 men were killed, 4 wounded. Chapman survived. His official report requested the immediate deployment of M26 Pershing tanks. The request was denied. Chapman's response: "Then why are we sending men to die in obsolete equipment?" These men had names. They had families. They had every right to expect their commanders would give them the best tools available to survive. George Patton made a calculation. He decided that strategic speed was worth tactical casualties, that operational victory justified individual deaths. Winning the war faster meant accepting higher losses per engagement. From a command perspective, that calculation is defensible. Wars are won by generals who make brutal choices about acceptable losses. Patton's aggression saved time. Time saved lives elsewhere. Time prevented German reinforcement. Time shortened the war, but from inside a burning Sherman, that calculation feels like murder. The historical debate about Patton's decision will never end. Military theorists will argue about operational tempo versus tactical superiority forever. Some will say Patton was a brilliant strategist who understood that mobility wins wars. Others will say he was a glory-obsessed egotist who sacrificed his men for speed records. Both are probably true. What's undeniable is this: American tank crews in Europe in 1944 were fighting in inferior machines because one man believed speed mattered more than armor. They died in greater numbers than they had to. They lived with fear that could have been reduced. They watched friends burn who might have survived, and there was a better tank. It existed, it worked, it could have saved lives. George Patton said no, he had his reasons. History will judge whether those reasons were good enough. But for the men who burned in Shermans in the snow outside Bastogne, for the crews who watched Panthers kill their friends from 800 yards, for the families who received telegrams that their sons died in tanks everyone knew were obsolete, for them, Patton's reasons will never be good enough. Because they know something Patton never admitted: you can win a war and still make decisions that kill men unnecessarily. You can be right about strategy and wrong about humanity. George Patton won the race to Germany. He proved operational tempo could overcome tactical deficiencies. He validated every theory he ever wrote about mobile warfare, and hundreds of men died in Shermans because he refused a better tank. Both things are true, and that's the tragedy no amount of strategic brilliance can erase. These men fought with what they were given. They died in machines that everyone knew could be better, and their sacrifice was real, whether Patton's decision was justified or not. Because of you, they will never be forgotten. Where are you watching from? And if you could go back and make the call, would you have chosen speed or armor?